Saint Maximilian Kolbe uncovered something terrible in the final days of his life, something the Church has concealed for decades, something about the images you have in your home right now. It was August 1941. Kolbe was in the starvation bunker at Auschwitz. 10 men sentenced to a slow, agonizing death, but he wasn't just dying. He was observing, studying, uncovering unseen laws that govern our spiritual reality, and what he saw in those final days forever changed our understanding of divine protection. Have you ever noticed how some houses feel heavy with a negative energy? How some homes seem blessed while others carry a suffocating, oppressive atmosphere? Kolbe discovered this isn't coincidence. It's spiritual physics. There are 5 types of religious images that, according to Kolbe's final writings, act as portals. Not portals to heaven, portals to something very different. Before I reveal these 5 images, you need to understand what Kolbe discovered about the invisible mechanics of spiritual protection. Because it's not what you think, it's not what most Catholics believe, and it's definitely not what they taught you in catechism. The first thing Kolbe observed in the bunker was that prayers didn't work the same for every man. Some found peace quickly. Others seemed tormented, as if something prevented them from connecting with the divine. The difference wasn't in faith. It was in how each man had prepared his soul before arriving there. And this preparation, Kolbe discovered, had everything to do with the sacred objects each man carried. One of the men in the bunker had a small crucifix, but not an ordinary crucifix. It was one of those mass-produced modern replicas, unblessed, without history. This man was the first to succumb to despair, the first to be consumed by fear. Another man carried an old rosary, blessed by his grandmother on her deathbed. This man radiated a peace even the Nazi guards noticed, a visible, tangible protection. Kolbe began to understand. They weren't just objects. They were spiritual antennae, and some of these antennae were tuned to the wrong frequency. Do you know the difference between a sacred image that protects and one that attracts what shouldn't be attracted? The difference lies in 3 factors Kolbe identified. 3 factors that determine if that cross on your wall is a shield or an open door. First factor, the emotional origin of the image. Kolbe realized that objects created with pure intentions radiate a different energy from objects created solely for sale, a difference our senses don't perceive, but our souls feel immediately. Second factor, the energetic history of the object. Every image absorbs the emotions and intentions of those who have been near it. If a cross passed through bitter hands, if a rosary was touched by someone consumed by hatred, that information is imprinted on the matter itself. Third factor, the spiritual compatibility between the image and its environment. Not every sacred image is suitable for every home. Some images crave silence and contemplation. Others thrive in homes full of life and movement. Placing the wrong image in the wrong environment is like trying to tune a radio to the incorrect frequency. But here's what Kolbe discovered that was most terrifying. There are 5 specific types of religious images that, by their very nature, act as magnets for unwanted presences. 5 types that, even blessed, even bought with the best intentions, carry an inherent risk. The first of these 5 images is something present in 70% of Brazilian Catholic homes. Something you probably have in your house right now. Something that seems harmless, holy, blessed, but that Kolbe identified as the most dangerous of all. These are images of saints in extreme suffering. And no, I'm not just talking about crucifixes. I'm talking about representations that emphasize agony, torture, despair, images that capture not redemption, but only pain. Kolbe observed that these images act as emotional anchors. They lock the home's energy into the frequency of suffering. And when a home vibrates constantly at the frequency of suffering, it becomes a magnet for everything that feeds on that energy. Have you ever entered a house with many images of martyred saints and felt an inexplicable weight, a sadness that wasn't your own? Kolbe would explain this as energetic contamination. The house was saturated with the vibration of pain. But this doesn't mean we should remove all images of saints who suffered. It means we should choose representations that also show transcendence, victory over suffering. The difference is subtle, but crucial. For example, a crucifix showing only Christ's agony is very different from a crucifix showing the serenity of accepted sacrifice. A Saint Sebastian depicted only as a victim is different from a Saint Sebastian radiating peace even amidst the arrows. The second image Kolbe identified as problematic are representations of warrior angels in attack positions. Archangel Michael with his sword raised, Gabriel in a combat stance, images that emphasize heavenly war. The problem isn't the existence of spiritual warfare. The problem is that these images keep the home in a constant state of battle, and a home in a state of battle attracts more battle. Kolbe noticed this when he observed that the men in the bunker who carried medals of the warrior St. Michael lived in greater internal agitation. Not that St. Michael didn't protect them, but the way they connected with this protection kept them in constant tension. The third category is images of saints with expressions of severe judgment. Saints depicted with harsh, scowling, condemning gazes, images that radiate more fear than love. These images create an atmosphere of constant guilt in the home. And guilt, Kolbe discovered, is one of the emotions that most easily transforms into an entry point for negative influences. When a person lives under the constant gaze of images that seem to judge them, they develop a fearful relationship with the sacred. And the fear of the sacred is a dangerous inversion of the natural spiritual order. The fourth category are images that mix sacred elements with macabre or morbid elements. Skulls, bones, symbols of death without symbols of resurrection. Images that emphasize only the end, never the new beginning. Kolbe saw that these images anchored the home in the energy of finitude, not of transcendence but of limitation. And a home anchored in limitation becomes fertile ground for thoughts of despair, surrender, depression. And the fifth category. The fifth is the most surprising of all. They are mass-produced images of saints or sacred figures, lacking any emotional or spiritual connection to their creators. Kolbe discovered that images created merely as commercial products, without devotion, without love, without spiritual intention, function as empty vessels, and empty spiritual vessels can be filled by any energy passing nearby. This doesn't mean all commercial images are problematic. It means images created without a soul can become dangerous if not properly consecrated and imbued with positive intentions after purchase. But how can you tell if an image in your home belongs to one of these 5 dangerous categories? Kolbe developed a simple test, a test anyone can perform. Stop in front of the image, look at it for 30 seconds. Don't think about anything specific, just observe, and then pay attention to what you feel. If you feel peace, gratitude, inspiration, the image is fulfilling its protective role. If you feel heaviness, anxiety, fear, guilt, or emptiness, something is wrong. But be careful. Sometimes what we feel isn't the image's fault. It's the fault of where it's positioned, or the energy we've accumulated within ourselves. That's why Kolbe also developed a method for cleansing and consecrating images that may have become problematic. The first step is to understand that every religious image needs to be treated as a sacred instrument, not as decoration, not as a cultural symbol, but as an instrument that connects our home to higher dimensions of reality. The second step is energetic cleansing. This doesn't just mean physical cleaning, although that's important too. It means cleansing the emotional memories the image may have absorbed. How to do this? Kolbe recommended a simple but powerful ritual. Hold the image in your hands. If it's too large, touch it with both hands, and then offer a prayer of gratitude for everything positive that this image may have witnessed. Give thanks for the prayers offered before it, for the tears of relief that may have fallen near it, for the moments of faith it has witnessed. This gratitude acts as a cleansing, erasing negative memories and strengthening positive ones. The third step is personal consecration. Kolbe believed that every religious image should have a personal connection with its keeper. It's not enough to buy it and hang it on the wall. You need to create a bond. How to create this bond? Tell the image your story. Explain why you chose it. Ask for specific protection for you and your family. Make it not just an object, but a personalized channel of communication with the divine. But what if you discover you have one of the 5 problematic images Kolbe identified in your home? Should you throw it away? Definitely not. Religious images should never be discarded in the regular trash. What Kolbe recommended was transformation. Every problematic image can be transformed into a protective image if we know how to do it. For images that emphasize only suffering, add near them some symbol of resurrection, of victory, of hope, a candle, a flower. A small piece of paper with a prayer of gratitude. This balances the energy. Or images of warrior angels. Add elements that represent peace achieved. A small dove, an olive branch. Some symbol showing that the heavenly war has been won. For images with expressions of severe judgment, place next to them photos of your family smiling. This humanizes the image and reminds us that the divine looks upon us with love, not condemnation. For images that mix the sacred with the morbid, add symbols of new life, plants, flowers, images of children, anything that represents continuity, growth, hope. And for images produced without a spiritual soul, make the difference yourself. Spend time with them, pray before them, share your joys and worries, transform them from commercial objects into spiritual companions. But Kolbe discovered something even more important than that. He discovered that the spiritual protection of a home doesn't depend only on the images we have. It depends on the emotional atmosphere we create around those images. A home where people pray with joy is different from a home where they pray with fear. A home where people give thanks is different from a home where they only ask. A home where people forgive is different from a home where they harbor resentment. Images capture and amplify the dominant energy of the home. If the dominant energy is love, gratitude, peace, the images will radiate these qualities. If the dominant energy is fear, guilt, anger, the images will absorb and reflect this negativity. That's why Kolbe always said that before blessing the images, we need to bless our hearts. Before consecrating the objects, we need to consecrate our intentions. And here's a surprising discovery Kolbe made in his final days. He realized that the men in the starvation bunker, who managed to maintain inner peace, transformed any object into an instrument of spiritual protection, even objects that weren't religious. A piece of bread shared with love became sacred. A sip of water offered with compassion became a blessing. A word of comfort became a powerful prayer. This means that true spiritual protection isn't in the objects. It's in us, in our intentions, in the purity of our hearts, in the sincerity of our faith. But objects can be great allies in this protection, as long as we know how to choose and consecrate them properly, as long as we understand that they are instruments, not substitutes for our own spirituality. Are you beginning to understand why the Church hid these teachings of Kolbe for so long? Because they place the spiritual responsibility back in our hands. They take us out of the passive position of simply possessing sacred objects and place us in the active position of creating sacredness. And that's frightening for those who prefer to outsource their spiritual protection. It's challenging for those who just want to buy the blessing instead of cultivating it daily. But there's an even deeper secret that Kolbe discovered. A secret about the true nature of divine protection that will completely revolutionize how you see your home, your family, your spiritual life. In the last 3 days of Kolbe's life, something extraordinary happened in the starvation bunker. The other 9 men began to die one by one, but Kolbe not only remained alive, he radiated a peace that transformed the surrounding environment. The Nazi guards, men trained to be cruel, began to act differently near the bunker. Some whispered among themselves. Others made the sign of the cross in secret. One of them even brought water to the dying, risking severe punishment. What was happening? Kolbe had discovered how to transform any space into a spiritual fortress, and he did it without a single religious image, no crucifix, no rosary, no sacred objects whatsoever. He did it solely with pure intention and a knowledge of the unseen laws governing our spiritual reality. And before he died, he whispered these laws to a young prisoner who survived to tell the tale. Laws that have been carefully guarded and are only now being revealed. The first law is the law of the dominant atmosphere. Every environment is governed by the most consistent emotion present in that space. If anger is the most frequent emotion, the environment becomes a magnet for conflict. If fear dominates, the environment attracts more reasons to fear. But if love and gratitude are consistently cultivated, the environment becomes a sanctuary where negative energies simply cannot take hold. How to apply this? Kolbe taught a technique called positive emotional saturation. For 3 consecutive weeks, the first emotion you express upon entering your home must be gratitude, out loud, specific gratitude. Thank you for this home that protects me. Thank you for this family that loves me. Thank you for this day that I can live. It may seem too simple, but Kolbe discovered that 3 weeks of consistent gratitude completely reprogram the energetic vibration of a home. The very walls begin to radiate protection. The second law is the law of the declared intention. Every home needs a clear spiritual intention, declared aloud by the head of the household. It's not enough to want protection. You must specifically declare what kind of protection you are creating. This house is a sanctuary of peace. This family is protected by divine love. Only that which builds and strengthens enters this home. Kolbe discovered that undeclared intentions remain weak, but intentions spoken aloud, with conviction, create a nearly impenetrable energetic barrier. The third law is the law of constant purification. Just as we cleanse our bodies daily, we need to cleanse our home energetically, not with complicated rituals, but with simple yet consistent actions. Every day, at least once, walk through your house expressing forgiveness. Forgiveness for the arguments that have taken place there. Forgiveness for the harsh words that have been spoken. Forgiveness for the negative thoughts you yourself have had. I forgive all the heavy energy that may have lingered in this environment. I release all resentment. I purify this space with love. 3 minutes of conscious forgiveness a day transforms an ordinary house into a spiritual fortress. But here's the most powerful secret Kolbe discovered. The secret that explains why some homes are spiritually indestructible, while others seem to attract problem after problem. The difference lies in what Kolbe called the radiant core. Every protected home has a specific point that acts as a center for radiating positive energy. And this point doesn't need to be an altar. It doesn't need to be a traditional religious place. It could be the kitchen table where the family gathers with love. It could be the armchair where the grandmother prays every day. It could be the baby's room where prayers are whispered every night. What makes a place a radiant core is the frequency and intensity of the positive emotions that are cultivated at that specific point. How to create your radiant core. Choose a spot in your house. It can be small, a corner, a table, a chair, and for 40 consecutive days spend at least 5 minutes in that spot, expressing the 3 most powerful emotions: gratitude, love, and faith. Gratitude for what you have. Love for your family and yourself. Faith in the divine protection that is always available. After 40 days, that point will become a natural radiator of positive energy, and that energy will spread throughout the house, creating an invisible but real protection. But caution. Kolbe warned about something crucial. He discovered that there are 3 types of people who can completely neutralize the spiritual protection of a home. 3 profiles that act as energetic vampires, capable of sucking away all the sacredness you have cultivated. The first type is the person who lives in constant complaint, who is never satisfied, who always finds fault in everything. This person spreads a vibration of dissatisfaction that quickly contaminates any environment. If you have someone like this in your house, it doesn't mean you should evict them. It means you need to apply extra protection. How? Every time this person complains, you mentally respond with a positive affirmation. They complain about the weather. You think, I am grateful to feel the rain. They criticize the food. You think, I am blessed to have food. It's constant work, but it works. The second type is the person who cultivates envy and comparison, who always looks at the lives of others with resentment, who wants to have what they don't have, not out of need, but out of competition. Envy is one of the most destructive energies for a home. It corrodes gratitude, which is the foundation of all spiritual protection. How to neutralize it? Every time you perceive envy in the environment, immediately offer a prayer of prosperity for the person being envied. May John be even more blessed. May his happiness increase. May his success inspire others. This breaks the energetic circuit of envy and transforms the home into a field of shared prosperity. The third type is the person who dwells in painful past, who constantly recalls tragedies, losses, betrayals, who uses pain as an identity and constantly relives trauma. I'm not talking about healthy grieving or naturally processing emotions. I'm talking about people who become addicted to their own pain and contaminate the environment with that vibration. How to protect the home? Every time someone starts to relive trauma unnecessarily, redirect the conversation to the future. What are you going to do now? How can we turn this into a strength? What lesson did this bring to your life? But Kolbe discovered something even more important about the spiritual protection of the home. He discovered that 90% of people do everything wrong when they try to protect their home spiritually. Most people think that spiritual protection means creating barriers, preventing bad things from entering. But Kolbe discovered that true spiritual protection means radiating so much light that darkness simply cannot approach. The difference is fundamental. Barriers require constant energy to be maintained, and they can be broken. But radiation is natural, spontaneous, inexhaustible. A home that radiates love doesn't need to defend itself. It naturally repels what doesn't match its vibration. How to transform your home into a radiator of light. Kolbe taught 5 practices that act as spiritual amplifiers. The first practice, the threshold blessing. Every time you leave your home, place your hand on the door and say, "May this house remain in peace while I am away." Every time you return, before opening the door, say, "May I bring only love and gratitude to this home." This programs your house to maintain protection even in your absence and ensures you only enter with positive energies. The second practice, the consecration of the meal. Before every family meal, someone should express gratitude, not only for the food, but for the opportunity to be together. Thank you for another day where we can share not only food, but love. Consecrated meals transform the table into an extension of the home's radiant core. The third practice, nightly forgiveness. Before sleeping, mentally forgive anything that may have caused tension in the house that day. Forgive arguments, misunderstandings, harsh words, and ask forgiveness for your own mistakes. This prevents negative energies from accumulating overnight when we are most spiritually vulnerable. The fourth practice, the room prayer. Once a week, visit each room in your house and offer a specific prayer for that space. In the bedroom, may this always be a place of rest and peace. In the kitchen, may food be prepared here with love. In the living room, may our family gather here in harmony. This consecrates each space to its highest purpose. The fifth practice, monthly renewal. Every month, choose a day to do a complete energetic cleansing of the house. Not just physical cleaning, but spiritual. Light a candle in each room, play soft music, and walk through the house expressing gratitude for every blessing that home has provided in the past month. But here's Kolbe's most revolutionary discovery, something that will forever change how you understand spiritual protection. He discovered that truly protected homes don't just repel negative energies, they transform negative energies into positive ones. They function as spiritual transmutation power plants. How is this possible? When a home is saturated with genuine love, gratitude, and forgiveness, it develops an alchemical capacity. People who arrive irritated leave in peace. Visitors who arrive worried leave confident. Even people with bad intentions begin to feel uncomfortable with their own negative thoughts. This means your home can become an instrument of healing, not only for your family, but for everyone who visits. A center of radiating blessings that positively affects the entire neighborhood. And here's the definitive test Kolbe created to know if your home has reached this level of spiritual protection. It's a simple test, but infallible. Invite someone who is going through difficulties to dinner at your house. Don't talk about the person's problems. Don't give advice. Simply provide an atmosphere of genuine love, gratitude, and peace. If, after 2 hours in your house, that person leaves visibly lighter, more hopeful, more at peace, your house has reached the level of spiritual irradiation. It has become an instrument of healing. But beware. Kolbe warned that this power brings responsibility. A house that becomes a radiator of light attracts people who need healing, and you need to be prepared to be a channel of blessings, not a counselor. The difference is that counselors try to solve other people's problems. Channels of blessing simply radiate unconditional love and allow love itself to do the work of healing. How to be a channel and not a counselor. When someone comes to you with problems, instead of offering solutions, offer loving presence. Listen without judging. Accept without trying to fix. Love unconditionally. And then something miraculous happens. The person themselves finds their answers. The love they feel in your home activates their inner wisdom. Your home becomes a space where miracles of self-healing happen naturally. But there's one last secret that Kolbe revealed. The deepest secret of all. The secret that explains why some homes remain protected for generations, while others lose their protection quickly. True spiritual protection doesn't depend on you maintaining perfect rituals. It doesn't depend on you never failing. It doesn't depend on you being a saint. It depends on you cultivating a single quality, the humility of recognizing that protection doesn't come from you. It comes through you. The moment you start believing that your home is protected because of your holiness, because of your rituals, because of your spiritual discipline, the protection begins to weaken. Why? Because the ego becomes the center, not love. And where the ego is the center, love cannot flow freely. That's why Kolbe taught that every practice of spiritual protection should begin and end with the same phrase: "It is not I who protects this house, it is divine love flowing through me." This humility keeps you connected to the inexhaustible source of protection. This humility prevents you from becoming dependent on rituals and keeps you dependent on love. And here's the promise Kolbe made on his last day of life. He said that any person, no matter their religion, social status, or past, can transform their home into a sanctuary of divine protection. You don't have to be Catholic. You don't have to be a saint. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to be sincere. You just need to cultivate genuine love. You just need to be willing to be a channel of blessings for your family and for everyone who crosses the threshold of your home. And when you do that, something extraordinary will happen. Your home will become a little piece of heaven on earth, a place where angels like to dwell, a sanctuary where the divine feels at home. You will begin to notice synchronicities, unexplainable protections, blessings that arrive at the exact moment, problems that solve themselves, the right people appearing at the right time, not by magic, not by luck, but because your home has become a point of attraction for everything that is good, beautiful, and true in the universe. And then you will understand what Kolbe really discovered in those last days in Auschwitz. He discovered that hell on earth only exists where love is absent, and that heaven on earth manifests where love is consciously cultivated. Your home can be your first heaven on earth project, the first place where you experience what it's like to live in the frequency of the divine. And when other people feel this frequency in your home, they will want to create the same thing in their homes. And so, house by house, family by family, you will be participating in the spiritual transformation of the world. Perhaps that's what Kolbe truly saw in those last days. It's not just about protecting a house, it's about transforming the entire world into a home protected by love. Perhaps the real miracle isn't having a protected house. It's discovering that you yourself are an instrument of divine protection, that wherever you go, wherever you live, you carry within you the capacity to create a sanctuary. And maybe those 5 images that attract evil aren't the real problem. The real problem is our failure to understand that we ourselves are the most powerful image of protection that exists. When you become a living image of divine love, your mere presence transforms any environment into sacred territory. And that is the discovery that can change not only your home, but your entire life. Saint Maximilian Kolbe understood this profound truth, a truth he carried with him even into the horrors of Auschwitz. His faith, his unwavering devotion, it was a sanctuary he carried within, a protection that transcended the walls of the starvation bunker, a beacon of hope in the face of unspeakable suffering. This is the power we all possess, the capacity to create sanctuaries wherever we go, simply by embodying that living image of divine love. That's the legacy of Saint Maximilian Kolbe, a testament to the power of faith, a testament to the transformative power of love itself, a power that can change not only your life, but the lives of everyone you encounter, the potential to transform the world, one sacred space at a time, one heart at a time. That is a legacy worth considering, worth embracing.